activity that I've run a bunch of times before when I've taught pedagogy workshops for much larger groups of philosophers. And we have people in small groups, and the people in
Is this for the recording?
yes.
The people in the small groups get different kinds of activities to work on. And we are few enough that I'm not sure it makes sense to put us in small groups. So what I'm going to do instead is y'all will get a different experience, and we're going to be one group, and we are going to quickly work sequentially through the different proposed options for us today.
We might. Yes, we do.
Welcome.
Shame for me late. No,
All right, you know what? I think 6 is enough to have 3 groups of 2. So thank you. This is perfect. I was hoping we would get 6 as a minimum.
Questions. It's just hard.
Our first activity today is going to be making origami paper cranes, or attempting to make origami paper cranes. And the way we're going to do this is you're going to be in pairs, and 2 people in each pair, obviously. So I can let you just work with the people you're sitting near. And you're going to have 5 to 10 minutes to attempt to make a paper crane. I have lots of origami paper. And group 1, you get the models of the finished product and a bunch of paper. And you're not allowed to use your phones. That would be considered cheating, and I would have to report you for academic integrity violations. So please, no phones. Group.
In art for my undergrad. I'm starting to sweat here.
Group 2, here's some instructions for you. And some paper. You are going to have me, group 3. Here's some paper. If anybody wants different color paper, we have lots and lots of different color paper here as well.
You can do whatever you want. Okay, whatever you like.
Do we start?
Go ahead, start, and at the end, you're going to grade everybody's grade. Excellent. I'm going to give you a grade from A to F for your time to make a paper crane. Which paper color would you like? All right. Excellent. I don't Ava, we met okay, on and off. And here's more just biology. I'm in biology. I'm gonna put some music lesson in the background. So you wanted to make.
I'm just starting.
Okay. I have interviewed that we work on. Never. Yeah. I am not an expert, but I do have experience. So okay, first one. And forward is not. Very fast. And what's the CMS cover? And it's kind of the word. And then want to think of it's totally not as much of it. I'm trying to be made this. And that's why it's lovely. It's lovely. There is a dino. There. And then this is
Yes.
and then so we made those little paper. Yeah. Yeah. Well, like this. So you probably something like this. And then you wanna, it says they from the same guy that. Make it square that way. This is quite different for me.
Try to remember where you're.
Can we just turn off the mic? Yeah. Turn the volume off on here. Yeah.
Kids are asking like birthday buttons.
That is weird and terrifying.
Yeah, I wonder if because my mic was near my phone, because I was putting the music, let me do this, I turned this one off,
Okay,
I think that might have been it, maybe I got a
I'm
notification.
I muted this for now.
Okay. You turn the volume faster. And so you're gonna flip it over.
So that is
Exactly the same thing. Someone can this stage. And so you want to do some sweeping shifts, corner, yeah. Oh, it's bringing it down. You're gonna end it up. So turning that looks like, good. Yeah. And again, you want to be.
This is where I got.
Yeah, no, you're
I
good.
don't really understand what this is. I'm not sure.
So.
Maybe we go from here, right? It's please. Okay, so this is,
And
this is
for everything,
open the
you did it on the other side.
Maybe you put it. Yeah, you're right, it's. So this one is first one, like, I can change. So you're gonna change which. Yeah, but then there's like, or maybe this is what happened. That one corner being.
And you don't have.
So like.
This goes-
This corner is. This corner. Yeah, somehow. And this number, so this corner, okay, hold it, and I think. This corner. That looks like, yeah. I think you're wrong. Okay, so you turn. And so now, be able to go to the top layer, on both sides. Okay, so it's like, yeah. And these are, we're gonna do that. That's giving instructions. That's great, that's great. And you're gonna do that on the other side. Oh, so we'll start with this. Oh, sorry. Doesn't matter, you could do it on the other side, but I would put it over here. When you're ready, we're all gonna take this roll. And it helps us to go like this. There we go.
Right.
And then it's gonna go like this. So you're eventually gonna get everything back in this time. I'm gonna get rid of that. Yeah, okay, I'll put it up on this. I'm gonna look at it. So it's yeah. Take up only the top of it. And there's just all the. The bottom of this is gonna, I want like that. Your height has to be on top. And then. Oh, are we supposed to, can we work together? Yeah, we can work together. It's not this, we can work together. Then we can wait. And so everything's how it. Well, this is. And then we creases, and then now I will. Yeah. Just one or two. Yeah. Yes, baby, and then this. Oh, I see, I see. And that's, I think before we put it back where it was. We're gonna go down up there. Okay, so what else is going to do? And a little bit more of a. And shot and then reopen it, so that has been here. And then wrap it top of the collapse. We're doing that on the other side from down here. So you did find things. really want to make sure you're going with that. And then this, so it helps to actually take more time. You're gonna pick it up or get it.
Not what it should be.
It's quickly little. No. Let me get it down. Once you get it, right? Let me, not gonna tell you. You have it like this. If you're gonna. Put it in the bowl.
Oh, I see, and that.
Fold and
Instruction.
You're only doing a half fold. So I gotta make my kite first, right? I'm gonna do the kite first.
So the guidelines are just pretty helpful, because I hope they don't know where, yeah.
And then my guideline.
Well, so I think actually.
So have,
Yeah, I'm good, right? Yeah, I'm gonna do this. Yep. And it can help sometimes if you kind of like push it.
Yes.
Okay. But you can see where it's at.
Yeah, I totally see it. I was not sure how.
No, this is not a,
That,
yeah,
yeah, that's reminds me.
Wow.
can make an origami.
Yeah, so this is the again, and these
things are gonna
bounce.
Yeah, this is it.
What is this? Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, the two artists. I mean, come on. All right.
Or should I just?
Do you want? Yeah. I think you gotta.
This is what's like the feedback.
And so what you're seeing is the same block and holding. So the part that is like this and yeah, I think it's
Have to be a student, pull out your phone.
Yeah, I think many papers you like to do whatever you like.
Here, I'll give you an evaluation. You should just bash the instructor.
Instructor.
Okay.
We're making.
Let's go again. A second attempt.
You got it. And then the part on the bottom.
Try the purples are a second attempt.
Yeah, so they'll be up like this. And then this time we're all the way back over. Come out the other side. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Don't worry about the head. Okay, let's. We're gonna do that together. And perfect, we'll do the same when you do that. Perfect, and now you're ready, so you have it like this. Then you'll be ready. Pull it out a little bit, push down.
One's ahead, but make it Put a pen in the head. So you put a pen in the other one in the head. And then this on that, sort of open the base up a little bit, and you can go like this a little bit more, and you pull the wings down, and you put the head. Oh yeah, and you pull the wings over if you want.
I know.
That's great. And so what you want to do now is this is going to be the head and the tail, and we're going to go this way. So what you're going to do is open it up a little. Not like that, you don't need that. And then if you want, you don't have. And then you can show that. It was very, very. And then push on this curve.
I'm very impressed.
Yeah.
But we have these.
Because when I have done this and given me
I wouldn't be able to do
instructions,
it.
no one gets it.
Yeah. Well, I think that also the collaboration is
You have good background.
They're not good instructions, but they are instructions.
True.
Yes.
Yes, good. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, and just.
Okay, all right, I think our time's up. You're welcome to keep playing the origami as much as you like.
Is it?
Well, that's, I think that's the point, it's like, we could never recreate it.
I don't think I can do it from here.
Yeah, that's what my issue is.
You're probably super frustrated. Yeah,
All right.
This is why I almost failed over.
So it is time to grade the cranes. I'm sorry, group one, this was a worthy effort. You turned something in, so you get a D. Oh, this is this is yours. So this is this is an F. I'm sorry. It does not count as a crane. Let's see. Group two, these are like solid B cranes. Not bad. Justin, this is pretty good. This is like an A minus. Tough grader on purpose. Yeah, I think I'm gonna get pretty poor course evals from this. Okay, so what are we doing with this activity? I have a handout for everybody.
Yeah.
Get it regraded.
That's exactly right.
So as I said, y'all are welcome to keep playing around with this if you like. I'm not gonna stand in the front. I'll just pull up a chair here so we're all kind of in a group. And so first question, what sort of instruction or lack of instruction did you all have? So what did you guys have?
Here we go.
Assemble.
Oh, no, you're good.
I would think we were in kind of a control group, so no instructions, but we have the assembled thing in front of us to model our behavior.
Yeah, so they had no instructions at all. They just had the finished product. You know, they had like, this is what an ASA looks like. You just have the finished product and no instructions at all for how to get there. What did group two have? What did y'all have?
We had printed instructions on how to do it. Not a lot of information, but there are instructions.
Yeah, and so these are instructions actually using traditional Japanese diagrams. If you know origami, you'll know how to interpret this. But if you don't know origami, and I should say I'm not an origami expert, the only thing I know how to make is cranes and not even super well. If you don't know origami, you're not going to be able to follow this, right? There's no verbal instructions. These are like the IKEA instructions. It's only showing the pictures. And then what did your group have? So we had
picture instructions, verbal instructions, and written instructions. So we had all three of them. Not only did we have verbal instructions, we had physical help in bending and moving things around. So we had like 5 layers of help.
Yeah, so I should say that the sheet of instructions was the cheat sheet for me. But it was helpful for you too, maybe. So you had real-time modeling instructions from me, along with correcting as you went if you got something wrong. So my first question is, how did this make you feel? It's okay if the answer is terrible. I've pissed off a lot of people in past workshops when I've given them, in some cases, nothing, like not even a model to work from, and said, make it. And then they look around and they see like I'm actually teaching other people to do it, and it's really frustrating. So it's okay if you're feeling bad. I actually want you to feel a little bad, because it can be productive to put ourselves in the experience of an unsupported learner. So how are you feeling, and why? Yeah, let's just start with how are you feeling?
Sorry. I felt not very smart and dumb, and also kind of regretted why I didn't learn it, because I know people around me who do it. My nephew, niece, and they're younger than me much, and
You're like, if kids can do this,
that's what I
why
kept
can't
telling
I?
my partner also. So I felt incompetent.
Yeah.
I actually felt pretty good because the instruction we had something to go off of, so I could get part of the way. And then it wasn't super clear, but between the two of us, we were able to like figure out what they meant. And so I kind of felt a sense of accomplishment more than if the instructions had been clear, but I didn't have the frustration of not having a place to start.
So I actually think you should feel very accomplished, because I've run this workshop maybe 4 times with different large groups of people, and you two are the only two who have ever successfully made cranes from those instructions, who didn't already know how to make cranes. So you did very well.
Yeah, they're artists, just saying.
I knew from the very beginning that I was not going to do anything with these pieces of paper, so I had given up before I started. I mean, I went along with it, but I knew in my heart that it was not going to work out for me.
So no motivation.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I was done from the beginning.
And looking around the room, I felt super stupid, because there's no way I could have done this without you guiding me every step of the way. I made like 7 critical errors that would have resulted in complete failure. And I also so he's redoing it because yeah, and so I felt stupid because there's no way I could do this on my own without a professor helping me. Like, I don't think it was great to have. I mean, thank you, my beautiful little crane, but there's no way I could do it again. Like, too much hand holding.
Yeah, so sometimes almost literally hand holding, because I would like reach out and grab your thing and show you what to do. Great. So what is the purpose of this activity? Why, what am I getting at here? What is our goal? Yeah, grades aren't everything. What else?
Scaffolding levels, like what is the level of confidence? If it has been okay enough, maybe we need less handholding.
Yeah, so like, what is the level of competence of the student? What do you need to actually be supported in learning something? So those of you who were successful, what helps you succeed in this? Clear instructions, communication. You were communicating with each other. I was communicating with the group that I was helping. What makes it harder and possible if you were in the unlucky group? No instructions, right?
I look back at the previous one from your retreat class, I think like confidence is what I think would help, like looking at this, like, okay, we can do something with this, like starting out feeling like we're going to do.
Yeah, feeling like there is a potential for success instead of being doomed. The first time I ran this activity, actually, the group just gave up and started piecing to, like, they found glue somewhere in the classroom and started piecing together like a construction crane out of paper, and they just totally did their own thing. And at the end, I said, like, wow, that's really nice and beautiful, but it's not what I assigned you. I'm sorry, you still get an F, right? So the lack of motivation, I think, is really tied to whether the task seems achievable. And so what would have been, if I for real wanted to teach a class how to make paper cranes, what could I have done to do this better?
But at the beginning, people are aware of it, so.
Yeah.
The feedback of people, they can help with yours.
Yeah, so ask about the background knowledge, because maybe one of you is already an expert origami folder, and then you can sort of be the teacher for your classmates. And I think that that's really illustrative of how our, some students show up in my class knowing how to write an essay already because they've been taught it in high school or other classes. Some students show up in my class barely knowing what an essay is, and so there's this wide range of different levels of preparedness. What else could I have done to make it better or less painful?
I guess my own learning style, I would like if you were not like handholding, but like up kind of demonstrating that you like walk around with it.
Yeah, so like demonstrating it in the front, maybe step by step, without coming and actually correcting it myself, without overcorrecting. Yeah, the document camera might help.
Oh, this is a common mistake.
Yes, pointing out the common mistakes, like this is the part most people get wrong, and make sure in this part you're doing it this way. Yeah. Yeah. Interpreting the instructions, right? The reason I picked these instructions to give you is because they're essentially in another language, right? Another visual language. They are using images that if you do origami regularly, you understand what it means, but if you don't, it's like terminology, right? So explaining how to interpret the instructions might be helpful. Yeah, I think like a YouTube video of it would probably be really useful. It's basically like me with the document camera, but asynchronous, and you can watch it anytime, definitely. And there's different, when I've run this with bigger groups, sometimes I'll have different levels of instruction, like nothing, the model, these instructions, the written instructions, a YouTube video, and me. And you can sort of see, the differences in how people do it. I think another thing that might have helped is for me to motivate why we're doing this, right? Why are we making origami? Why does this matter? What's interesting about it? I probably should have started with like a paper fortune teller or boat or cup. This is way, way too hard. This is not a novice origami thing, right? It's not super, super advanced for like origami standards, but it's definitely not novice. So the level of difficulty isn't well matched to where you all were as students. Potentially.
Well, I kind of disagree with that. Like, this was right at the level, like, it was pretty much similar. It was like, yeah, this is obvious, right? But this was something that was achievable, but I actually kind of like it.
Okay, super. So I think this is really good because I think that you are the student who is either through background knowledge or skill or interest, motivated and inclined to do this well, right? And ready to jump right into the crane. Maybe you are the student who is not ready to jump right into the crane, right? If you're less motivated, if you have less of a desire to do this kind of activity, if you have less background experience with it. I think that's a good transition into a question for all of you, which is, why am I doing this in a CTE workshop? How is this? This is meant to be metaphors or analogies to what we face in our classrooms with our students. What connections are you drawing between experiences our students might be having? Actually, I can pass it around, or I can, then we could have one at each table.
So Bianca's probably in the same situation. I teach a lab class, And one of the things that I do is suturing. So you have to learn how to suture. And again, we start out with like a simple stitch, and then we go to an interrupted, and then we go to a mattress. But I mean, I'm basically teaching them how to do origami so that they learn how to suture wounds up properly, and then how to tie knots. Amazingly, how many people don't know even know how to tie their shoelaces. Yeah, like the first knot on a shoelace. I'm like, do y'all know how to do that? And they're like, no, we have slip-in shoes and Velcro and all that. So, so wide. And then there's some kids that are like, oh, I was a Boy Scout. What knot you want me to tie? You know, so the breadth of background knowledge,
Really big breadth of different preparation levels.
preparation levels, but they're all like Mark, highly motivated to learn how to throw a stitch.
Because they know why it's important,
Correct.
right? They know that they're
Yeah.
going to need to know this.
Yeah. And aside from they know it's going to be on the next exam, but I also give them lots of practice, and I do give them YouTube videos to watch so that we do it. I mean, so yeah, iterations of doing it, for showing them, walking them through it, videos to watch later. And then I also tell them it's really hard, but they're all going to figure it out by the end of the semester. So
Yeah, I think that flagging that it's difficult is super important, because it might have been less frustrating if I said, I don't expect you to achieve this, make a crane, right? Or if I were able to explain why this activity is intrinsically valuable, other than you're just, I think this one stopped. No, it's still there. You know, like this is something that reduces stress and is like good for hand-eye coordination, or whatever else it is that I could tell you about why it's valuable.
I'm just observing, I see the people that are successful wanting to do it, whereas we are not even trying, so I think it feeds into it, mentally, right?
Yeah.
I want them to sort of forget it. I'm not going to be reminded of my incompetence.
wow, I think
They are, I think,
Justin wants to
trying
do it on his own.
develop
But it's interesting because I'm getting stuck now. I did it the first time, and now like I'm stuck at
You
one.
did it collaboratively the first
I did it
time.
collaboratively and trying to do it on my own, and I'm like I'm stuck at a point, and I'm like really frustrated. I'm like ready to ball it up. So
Yeah, I think that's right. Any other connections?
Yeah, so
yeah.
I just gave them the.
the original.
And so for, and I do, I do clinical case studies that are essays. And when I first did this 15 years ago, I was like, yeah, just write an essay. Like, how could you not write an essay? Now, thing with a checklist on how to actually do it. And they're so much better. So much better. Then this year I let him use AI, which has been hilarious. It's fun.
The takeaway I had, because I not the same type of lab class, but I also teach like hands-on classes where and some of them they're like working with technical equipment and stuff. And I was thinking about this in the context of a lot of times the question is when they're struggling with something, they're not figuring it out, figuring out the right amount of support, like, because it's like at one extreme, I could be like, let me just go in and fix this, which sometimes I'll do if we're trying to learn something else and they're getting stuck on something that's not actually the point of the lesson. Like, let me do that so you can be on what we're doing. On the other extreme, like, right somewhere
Yeah.
good at thinking about that, although I still don't know exactly where that answer is.
Yeah, I think that was coming up in the group that I was assisting, because, you know, there was one point where I think like I just and sort of did it myself so we could be going along at the same pace. Want to do it on your own, right? Do it on your own. I think I was too hands-on, perhaps.
I think you have the different students. You have the one who kind of will like shut down, like they just want you to do it for them. Yeah. And the one who's like, let me give you some advice. No, I'll figure it out. And then half an hour later, they're still like figuring it out. I'm like, can I give you a pointer? That's what we're here for?
Like some guidance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes there are also really.
I can just repeat for the benefit of the video what I can just summarize the points people make for the benefit of the video so we don't have to worry. Yeah.
No, just summarizing. Oh,
Yeah, I don't think there's like.
so our students are waiting, sometimes I feel like the ones who've already achieved that, they're getting, I send their invitation to the foreign language.
Yes.
And I don't want to rush the others also, so balance I'm always curious about how. And I also don't want to put the spotlight on others who want to do on the slower side. I don't know, this is not a question, this is not.
Yeah, I think it is a hard question. So the question is, what do you do when you have students of different levels and skills and abilities? And you have some who, very easily complete the task and they're done and they're just sitting around. You have others who are taking forever or who are really unskilled in it, and you don't want to have to highlight the fact that they're unskilled. I mean, if we continue with the origami as an analogy, I could have had another instruction sheet for other kinds of things you could make and had said, like, if you finish early, here's another one you can try. Or if this one is a little much, you might want to start with the boat, right? And so have this as the thing we're aiming for, but then also have, like, here's the paper cup that you can start with if you need to practice just the folding and precision of it. Here's the more advanced that, like, you get to make a frog because you already made the crane or something like that. But how that actually looks in the classroom is really challenging and hard to be aware of.
I think also chunking it, like this was a lot of steps. So if you could have, okay, today we're just going to do the first 5 steps of the crane. And then the next time, and then you don't have such a lag period. So just chunking it
Into smaller
learning
portions, yeah.
chunks.
Yeah, okay.
I think there's a little bit of to the question brought up is like, what is our actual goal?
Yeah, what is your actual goal?
That also changes like how, is it an issue if somebody only did the boat and kind of struggled with that, and then they are at the end of the class, if they're not gonna be ready for the next one. Or like you said, if it's like a stress relief sort of thing, then hey, we accomplished something, it might be that's good enough.
And I think that observation is really important, right? That it matters what you're doing. What is the function of this activity? And is the function of the activity transparent to the students? Right? So what is the goal of what you're doing? And do they understand that's the goal? Because I think it's very easy. We know what these tasks accomplish, and we assume that the students know, and they don't ask because they're just used to doing what they're told to do. Like, it's what the teacher said, you do your homework, you just do it. But it can help a lot with motivation to know what the point of it is, and it can help people know what to focus on. Yeah. I want to briefly review some thoughts from the handout, and then we can talk more about this because we end at 12:50. Is that right? So if you're curious, there is a link to a paper that I wrote with a person who was a participant in this activity, actually, the first time I ran it, and we co-authored a paper of what the activity is like and what you can learn from it. So if you're curious about it, that's footnote 1. But the takeaways that I'm trying to bring out of this are that explicit, detailed, step-by-step instruction is important. So giving you the end product is not enough. And I think that's really illuminating what you said. You used to just say, like, write an essay. And, when I was a student, I often had professors who would say, like, here's an example of an A paper, go write one. And if you're already quite skilled, you know how to do that. But if you're not, well, that doesn't help you that much. I don't know how the person who wrote that A paper got there. And so it's also not enough if you're providing instructions that require background knowledge to properly interpret the instructions. And I'm continually, despite reminding myself not to be, surprised by how big the gaps are between my background knowledge and students' background knowledge, right? And it's definitely, the terminology from my discipline, but it's also sometimes like really basic stuff, like what's a footnote, what's a citation, right? And I think that
shoelaces.
Yeah, how to tie shoelaces, right? Like, you might just say start with a shoelace tie and then realize that not everybody knows how to do that. Yeah. So it's really important to get an understanding of where the background knowledge is missing. Timely feedback is really critical. There were a couple times where we were working on it where you were doing the folds on the wrong side of it, and so it just wouldn't have worked. So I have to correct you there, or you're not going to be able to achieve it. And I mean, I do this myself. We often are only giving feedback on the completed product. And if you're not giving feedback on the steps along the way, it's not going to be as effective for helping somebody learn. Practice is important. You need time and opportunity for practice, ideally low stakes, ideally scaffolded. Start with simpler things first. The type of instruction you're receiving is going to influence your end products. Motivation is going to be enhanced if you understand why you're engaging in an activity and can see a connection between the activity and something you value, some learning aim or some other thing that matters to you. Thoughts about those ideas, other ideas this makes you think of, other connections to classrooms? Yeah.
I think these are great.
You're welcome.
The thing about the errors must be corrected before it's too late. I think there's also like figuring out when is that right, where there's times when it's like beneficial, like you see them make a mistake, like, hey, let's play this out and see why that way is not going to work.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, I was told to stop doing and do it this way, and the next time they don't remember which way they did it because they didn't understand why it didn't work in the first way.
Yeah, you have to actually sometimes make the mistakes to learn from them, which means that there needs to be an opportunity to do that where failure is a safe option for students. And that can be challenging, right? Because it means it either needs to be an ungraded form of assessment or a graded just for completion. Or I have a colleague who gives students a portion of their participation grade for what he calls heroic missteps, a colleague at another university, and they have to describe a way in which they failed and how they learned from it. And they don't get full credit in the course unless they have had a failure experience and are willing to describe how they failed. So, finding ways to make mistake making something that students are able to do.
Yeah, so on this, I think it helps a lot to, especially since when you mess up one step, the later stuff won't work, to be able to confirm at each step that you've gotten it right.
Yes.
Which that was one of the big advantages we had over the other groups, is you could look and see when things had gone wrong and stop us before we plowed along with something that didn't work. I think if I were learning this myself, if you could have pre-printed pieces of paper that had numbers on them, that when I fold it, those two numbers go together.
Yeah.
So I could confirm that, yeah, I am folding it right, because look, the two twos now are together with each other. Having something like that where there's a quick way to see that, yeah, I got that stage right, I'm ready to go on to the next stage.
Yeah.
Having some sort of feedback along the way that you're doing things right, and now it's fine to proceed to the next step.
And I do believe they make paper like that, if I want to learn more.
So I totally agree with Mark, like the mistakes and how you solve, and that's what we do in lab classes all the time, right? There's a lot of things that go on. So I do a mock case study. So like a practice before they actually hand in the real one. And only about a third of the class at best will do it. And of course it's like the top students that do it. So how do you get the bottom students to do these assignments that have no point value? Because if it doesn't have a point, they're not going to do it, but it has a learning value.
This is a really hard question. I just had students in my bioethics class do a case study where everyone was required to tell me what their topic was going to be, and I was going to approve it. And then I had optional, they had to create their own case and offer an ethical analysis of it. So optional was you can upload the case, a week before it's due, and I'll give you feedback. And maybe 4 students out of the whole class do it because they're not getting points for it. And so I think that it's this real balance between the fact that realistically students are busy and they have a learning culture where they're just not going to do it if you don't give points. So you could just give completion points. I do a lot of stuff in my classes where like my reading reflection homeworks are, even if everything you say is false, you're still going to get full credit on it, right? You just have to be completing it. So you could incentivize that way, but then there's this question of if you're not incentivizing it with a grade and you're giving them the opportunity, at what point is it the student's responsibility that if they're not going to take advantage of the opportunities you're giving them, there's not, what else can you do about it? And at what point is it our responsibility to keep enabling them to see why those opportunities are valuable? And I don't have an answer because I think that's really hard.
Like there's obvious reason to do like what I'm busy with these other things. The problem is often they don't see where it would be valuable until after it happens. Yeah. Something I would suggest, I like to just get points for completeness even if it's bad. And play off the fact that they're terrible at math.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I have a bunch of like along the way sort of things that I used to make sort of optional most students would do. And now they're required, and like I might have 6 assignments over the course of the semester that total 1% of their final grade.
But they obsess over it.
So like, oh my God, this is for a grade.
So true.
But I'm happy to give them 1% if it gets all that stuff done.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah, no, they tend to fixate on like these small stakes, small points things.
But that's where you take advantage, like, so make it anything you want them to do, just make it worth something.
Not just one screen.
Oh, very easy, criteria, must complete 5 or 6.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah.
I might be speaking to the adult students.
Oh, no, ours.
No, that's all the students, I think. I think we're probably out of time. Is that right? Everyone, thank you so much for coming. We had the perfect number of people to enable this to work, so I really appreciate it. I really value you playing along with this. And if anybody wants to practice more origami, I have lots and lots of paper. So please take as much origami paper, take instructions, take the other instructions, take as much paper and instructions as you like. And there's cookies.